My name is Savannah. I always knew I was the second choice. It's funny, you never expect to be second place in your own family, yet here I am. My dad, the man who should have been my anchor, slowly turned his back on me the moment my stepmother walked through the door. I tried to ignore it at first, to hope things would change, but they never did. It wasn't just her. It was Emily, her daughter, the one my dad could never stop praising. The real daughter, they'd whisper, assuming I couldn't hear. But I did. I heard every word, every snide remark, every look that told me I wasn't enough. Emily was perfect, flawless, kind, everything I wasn't. And the worst part, my dad believed it. He always made excuses for her. "She's just trying to help, Savannah," he'd say when Emily would push me aside. "She's young. She doesn't know any better." But I knew better. Emily never had to try. She was always what they wanted her to be. And I was just the inconvenience they had to deal with. Years passed, and the tension only grew. I stayed out of their way, kept to myself, and watched as Emily's presence became more and more central. I wasn't bitter, or at least I tried not to be. But it stung, like a constant reminder that no matter what I did, I would never be the one who mattered. My dad was lost to me, and I had nothing left to hold on to but the hollow silence that filled our house. When Emily got engaged, I should have felt happy for her. She was, after all, the golden child, the one everyone looked up to. But when I heard the news, a knot twisted in my stomach. I couldn't shake the feeling that this was it. This was my moment, my chance to finally matter. Maybe, just maybe, my dad would see me again. Maybe he'd remember that I existed outside of Emily's shadow. The engagement party was everything I expected it to be. Elegant, grand, and all about Emily. My dad was all smiles, eyes glowing with pride as he stood by her side, beaming like a man who'd won a prize. I watched from the sidelines, pretending to smile, pretending I was happy for them. But inside, I was aching. I was desperate for a moment, just one moment, where my father might see me, where he might remember I was still his daughter too. When they told me I wasn't invited to the wedding, I didn't cry. I just sat there, the phone pressed to my ear, hearing the words that would haunt me forever. "It'll be too crowded, you understand." Too crowded. That was the reason they gave me. They didn't say it outright, but I knew the truth. There wasn't a space for me in their world anymore. Not even at Emily's wedding, where I should have been standing beside my father. Instead, they sent me a link, a live stream. So I sat alone in my tiny apartment, clicking the link, forcing myself to watch the wedding unfold in front of me. And I told myself I was fine, that it didn't hurt. But it did. It hurt more than I could put into words. The live stream started, and there she was, Emily, standing at the altar, glowing in a dress that shimmered like something out of a fairy tale. She was perfect, of course. My dad stood beside her, pride written all over his face, his hand resting on her shoulder. I couldn't help but watch, my heart heavy, my throat tight. I had hoped for something. Maybe a simple invitation, or at least a mention, a reminder that I mattered. But no. Instead, I was relegated to this distant observer, watching a moment that should have been mine too. The click of the live stream felt like a cruel mockery. I wasn't even in the room. I wasn't a part of this. I wasn't family. The grandeur of the event was overwhelming. Gold arches, champagne towers, a string quartet playing softly in the background. It was the kind of wedding you see in movies, the kind that people dream about. But all I felt was hollow. I kept telling myself to focus on the beauty, the love, the happiness, but all I could see was the empty space where I should have been. It wasn't just the wedding I wasn't a part of. It was everything. The family photos, the vacations, the laughter they shared that I was never invited into. I was always watching from the outside, never included, never even considered. And no matter how hard I tried to convince myself that I didn't care, that it didn't bother me, the truth was that it hurt. My father's pride in Emily, the way he looked at her like she was the best thing that ever happened to him, only reminded me of the painful truth. I wasn't enough for him. Not anymore. I didn't expect much from the live stream, but what I saw, it wasn't just an image on a screen. It was a blow to the chest. The camera panned over the guests, their smiles polished, their voices like a blur of celebration. I sat on my couch, clutching my phone like it was a lifeline, watching them, watching my father. Then something happened. The live stream froze. For a split second, everything was still. The camera hung on a shot of Emily, her face frozen in a moment of confusion. The screen flickered, the music abruptly stopping, and a hush fell over the guests. I watched the guests, all of them staring at something behind the camera, murmuring among themselves. The silence stretched. I could feel my pulse quicken. I leaned in, squinting at the screen, trying to make sense of what was happening. What was wrong? Why was everyone looking behind them? Then, Emily's face went pale. I didn't know what was going on, but I knew it was something big. She looked like she'd seen a ghost, her smile faltering. My stomach dropped. Something was off, and I could tell she knew it. The camera snapped back to the groom, Daniel, who stood at the altar looking just as confused, his eyes darting nervously across the room. My heart raced. The feeling of being an outsider in my own family intensified. I shouldn't have been here, shouldn't have been watching, but I couldn't look away. And then my phone buzzed, pulling me out of the chaos unfolding on screen. It was a message from Daniel. "Savannah, I need to talk to you. Now." The words on my phone sent a chill down my spine. I stared at the screen, heart pounding, as I tried to process what Daniel's message meant. He was the groom, Emily's fiancé, the man who had just stood at the altar, about to marry her, and now he was reaching out to me. I didn't know what to think. Part of me was filled with a strange mix of dread and curiosity. Why would he want to talk to me? We'd barely spoken in the years he'd been part of their lives, and what could possibly be so urgent that he had to message me in the middle of the wedding? I'd known him briefly, before all of this. Before he became part of the perfect family I could never be a part of. Our paths had crossed once or twice, but there was nothing that stood out. Nothing to suggest he'd ever have a reason to contact me now. So, why did he? I debated for a moment before I tapped on his message. "Savannah, I need to talk to you. Now." The words echoed in my mind. Now. Not later. Not when things settled down. Now. What the hell was going on? I took a deep breath and typed back. "What's going on? Is everything okay?" My fingers hovered over the keyboard, heart racing. I couldn't focus, couldn't think straight. But deep down, I felt like something was shifting. Something had just broken loose. And it had something to do with me. Something that wasn't supposed to be found out. Before I could even process my next move, the phone buzzed again. "Meet me. I'll explain everything." I couldn't ignore it any longer. My heart pounded as I walked into the small coffee shop where Daniel had asked me to meet him. It was almost laughable. I was still in my faded sweater, my hair a mess. Barely, holding it together. Meanwhile, I was about to sit across from the man who was about to marry Emily, my stepsister, the one who'd always had it all. When I saw him, he was standing by the door, looking uncomfortable, like he was waiting for something to break. His eyes met mine, and for the first time he didn't look like a groom. He looked like someone with a heavy secret, one he couldn't keep anymore. "Savannah," he said, his voice low. I'm sorry to drag you into this, but we need to talk. I nodded, trying to steady my breathing. What's this about, Daniel? Why now? He pulled out a folder from his bag and placed it in front of me. A thick stack of papers. My fingers trembled slightly as I reached for it. This is about the will. The one you were never told about. My stomach churned. Will? What was he talking about? Daniel exhaled sharply. Your name was on it, Savannah. You're tied to all of this. The house, the land, even the wedding venue. The words hit me like a punch. My mind went blank. What do you mean? My name was on the will? Daniel looked around the room, making sure no one was listening, and leaned in closer. They hid it from you, your father and your stepmother. They didn't want you to know. They wanted everything for themselves. Emily doesn't even know about this. I froze. It felt like the ground had been pulled out from beneath me. All these years I'd been cast aside, left in the dark, and now this. My name was tied to it all. I had a right to everything they'd taken from me. Why are you telling me this? I asked, voice trembling. I needed to know if he was trying to play me, if this was just another twist in their game. Because I can't marry her like this, not after what I found out, he said, his eyes meeting mine with an honesty I wasn't used to. They've been lying to you, and I won't stand by and let them get away with it anymore. I stared at the papers in front of me, the words blurring together as I tried to process what Daniel had just said. A will. My name was on it. It didn't make sense. Why had they hidden it? Why would they keep something like this from me? Daniel leaned back in his chair, letting the silence hang between us. They never thought you'd find out, he murmured. But this is your inheritance, Savannah. It's not just about money. It's about everything they've taken from you. My mind was racing, trying to piece it all together. The house, the land, the venue where Emily's wedding was happening. Everything that should have been mine had always been mine. But they'd stolen it. My father, my stepmother. They had built their lives around this lie, and I was nothing, more than an afterthought to them. I felt a knot tighten in my chest. All these years, they'd treated me like I was invisible. And now, to find out that everything they had was tied to me, to my name, was a slap in the face. Daniel continued, his voice soft but firm. They made you believe you had nothing, but that will proves they lied. They wanted you out of the picture, out of their perfect little family. He paused, and I won't let them do that to you anymore. It felt like a punch to the gut. A wave of anger swept over me. How could they have done this? How could they have treated me like I was nothing more than a shadow in their perfect lives? Why? Didn't you say anything sooner? I asked, the words slipping out before I could stop them. I didn't know if I could, Daniel said quietly. But now that I know, I can't let you be the one left in the dark. You deserve to know the truth, Savannah, and for the first time, I felt a flicker of something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. I couldn't stop thinking about what Daniel had said. The will. My name was on it, and for the first time, I was beginning to see a glimmer of something I hadn't seen in years. The possibility of control. For so long, I had felt like a bystander in my own life. But this was my chance to take back what was mine. Daniel handed me the papers, and I flipped through them slowly, my hands shaking as I read each line. There it was, in black and white. The property, the house, everything I thought had been stolen, was tied to me. Not just money, not just land, but the house where I had grown up, the family legacy my father had erased me from. It was mine. But how could they have kept this from me? How had they manipulated me into believing I was nothing? I wanted to scream, to throw the papers in their faces. They had built a life on lies, a life where I didn't exist, and now they thought I was just going to sit back and let them get away with it? You have every right to fight for this, Savannah, Daniel said, his voice steady, but I could see the concern in his eyes. But it's not going to be easy. Your dad and your stepmother will fight you every step of the way. I nodded, feeling the weight of what I was about to do settle in my chest. This wasn't just about property or money. It was about everything. They had stolen from me. My sense of self, my place in the family, the years they'd taken without even considering me. I wasn't just reclaiming a house or a piece of land. I was taking back my dignity, my power, and my future. They thought they could erase me, but they had underestimated me. I'm done being the second choice, I said quietly, my voice stronger than I'd ever felt. It's time for me to take back what's mine. The more I thought about it, the more I realized just how deep the lies ran. It wasn't just the will. That was only a part of it. Everything they had done to me, every slight, every whisper behind my back, was part of a plan to erase me, to make me nothing. But the will was the key. It was the thing that held everything together, and it was time for me to unravel it. I met with Daniel again, this time in a small office where we could talk freely. He was becoming my ally, the one person who had seen the truth, who wasn't blinded by the perfect family image they'd so carefully crafted. I did some digging, Daniel said, sliding a file across the table to me. This is everything I could find. The wedding venue, the property, all of it. It's yours. And they knew that. I felt a sick kind of satisfaction as I flipped through the documents. They had hidden it all. My inheritance, my place, in the family. They had worked so hard to shut me out, but they hadn't counted on the truth coming to light. They thought they could erase me completely, but I wasn't going to let that happen. This is everything they've tried to bury, Daniel said, his voice filled with a quiet determination. They've manipulated you, Savannah, but they haven't won yet. The realization hit me like a wave. Everything. The house, the land, the wedding venue where Emily was about to marry Daniel, had been mine all along. I had been betrayed in ways I couldn't even imagine. My father, my stepmother, they had robbed me of my place in this family. They had robbed me of my life. And now, I was going to take it all back. I felt the anger rising inside of me, but it wasn't just anger. It was something else too. Something sharper. This wasn't just about revenge. This was about reclaiming everything they had tried to take from me. I'm going to make them pay, I said, my voice steady, but the fire inside me was burning hot. Not just for what they've done, but for every lie, every betrayal. They thought I would fade away, but I'm not going anywhere. The night before the hearing, everything inside me was still. It was a strange calm, the kind you feel just before a storm breaks. I had everything I needed, the will, the proof, the truth. What had started as a flicker of hope had turned into something much stronger, a force I could no longer ignore. I looked at the papers one last time, the ones that proved I had every right to the house, the land, everything they'd tried to erase. The pieces of my life were scattered across these pages, and tomorrow they would be put back where they belonged, in my hands. Daniel was with me every step of the way, helping me navigate the complicated mess of legalities, offering quiet support when I needed it most. But this, in the end, was my fight. And I wasn't going to lose. When I walked into the courtroom the next morning, everything felt different. The air was thick with tension. I could almost hear the whispers of my father and stepmother, their confident smugness, as they thought they could simply walk away with everything. They didn't know what was coming. The hearing was a blur of voices, the attorneys fighting back and forth. But in the center of it all, I stood. I stood for the girl they'd silenced, the daughter they'd cast aside, the person who had been invisible in their eyes for too long. But now I was seen.